my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
So just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
Come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Now, there's one thing you might have noticed I don't complain about. Politicians.
Governments don't live together, people live together. Governments, you don't always get a fair word or a fair fight. Well, I've come here to give you either one, or get either one from you.
That's totally taken out of context.
Well, not really.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up,
T-minus 1 minute,
live out the true meaning of its creed.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
T-minus 50 seconds.
I am paying for this microphone, Mr. Speaker.
Every dollar released from taxation
T-minus 40 seconds.
that is spent or invested will help create a new job.
Chivalry is dead, and women killed it.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines.
T-minus 20 seconds.
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing ground and in the streets.
10, 9,
we shall fight
8,
in the hills.
7, 6.
We shall never surrender.
3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, welcome to the Problem Solver Politics live stream. Glad to have you guys. My name is Cardin. I am your host, along with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
Hey. Rough start. It's all good. It's all good. Anyway, Cody, while you're hammering that out, is there any possibility you could just throw up that picture of Amy Klobuchar from the New York Times? Today, and this is what we're going to talk about. I want everybody to actually, no, I don't want to drive traffic to the New York Times and reward them. So we'll actually just put this up on the screen. But today, the New York Times officially endorsed 2 candidates, and they're patting themselves on the back and waxing very nostalgic and proud of the fact that they've never done this before. They've never endorsed somebody. So
no, they've never endorsed.
Or they've never endorsed 2 people at
once. Hold on, we'll just get to that one quickly, and then we'll get into all this. Ready?
Okay.
I just want people to know what's going on. Not everyone follows this stuff. So really quickly, we'll get back to the meme. It's a go. But I just want to really quickly catch everybody up. So, as Carden was talking about, New York Times made history. They endorsed 2 candidates for president. They've never done this before. 2 candidates. Who could possibly be so great? So great. Both these people are so amazing. We actually can't. It's splitting hairs. We can't do it. Spoiler alert on the screen right there. It was Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar. I have some funny data we'll get to later, but sorry, I just want to lay the groundwork. That's what's going on. The New York Times in their, to be frank, I guess the New York Times has to endorse somebody. It's not like I wasn't waiting all year for it, right? But anyway, it happened. They made history by endorsing these 2 corporate establishment shills, I guess, as their, which makes sense. They are the corporate establishment shill paper of record. You're the corporate establishment shill candidates. But anyway, so make sure that everyone knew it was up to speed. So, Carden, you were saying.
Well, 2 things. First off, I just sent you a link as well. You got to pull it up. Wikipedia shows they have not endorsed a Republican candidate since Dwight Eisenhower. Okay, the last time they endorsed a Republican, he was a World War II general.
Yeah, but I mean...
All right, So anybody that thinks for a second they're non-biased is full of crap. And we're calling them our paper of record BS. This is why nobody trusts them.
I don't think the fact that they're... By the way, I don't know how they did it in 56. I got to be honest. Right now, it's held by their editorial board. And I think it's one thing to say that the literal opinion columnists they hire share a similar opinion. Like, okay, I understand that. My large point is there's so many legitimate reasons, which we'll actually go through and looking at these interviews, to hate on New York Times. The fact that they mostly employ Democrat opinion writers, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we'll go through some reasons to really not like
them.
Fine, and how
but
they
I'm
do
just
things.
saying it shouldn't be considered. I mean, this is proof positive that they're a biased source of information. Therefore, they should not be considered the paper of record.
Their editorial board is biased, perhaps.
Okay, fine. But fine, then they can't be accused of having a diversity of opinion if all they ever do is endorse Democrats. All right, it's a glaring, measurable quantifier of their rank bias. It's a pathetic newspaper, but fine. We'll just go with it now, because even if they are, you know what they remind me of? Potter in It's
like
Wonderful
Life. Let's
Life.
just go through the literal things they did.
Yeah, we'll
look at it.
So anyway, they endorsed 2 candidates and they're congratulating themselves and patting themselves on the back for endorsing 2, which in my mind just makes it think that they couldn't really hash it out and choose one. But it's very revealing who they chose. You know what I'm saying? And let's just dive into the reasons why, Cody. I mean, you might as well just take it away, dude.
One thing I want to make sure I mention...
did you show the meme already?
I did. We'll show it again while I'm pulling this stuff up.
Because this is the last thing that I'll say before you start your analysis here. Literally look at the picture of Amy Klobuchar that they chose for the front page. Does that not look like a frame taken directly out of Wall Street with Michael Douglas and that huge, like 1980s first cell phone that was like the size of a brick as he's walking along the beach? Like, if you were to tell me that this was an informational video, that was a safety video for an airline that I had to watch as I was boarding a DC-10 in 1987, I would actually believe it as a Jeopardy question. This is proof positive that the DNC is nothing but a bunch of baby boomers that are still trapped in the 80s, fighting back at their parents for not allowing them to be in art class or on the dance team. That's all I have to say.
Really? Sure?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cody.
Like I said, I thought it was pretty funny you brought it up. If you told me it's just like an HD transfer of some 80s movie, I'd be like, okay, I could see it. But anyway, this is what I wanted to... and I'll go through them all. There's one particular question. So those of you guys who aren't 100% familiar with the whole process, I want to make sure everyone's up to date on it. Because, again, to be frank, I wasn't before 2 or 3 weeks ago. So what they did is they sat down and they interviewed with the entire editorial board some candidates. I say that because they didn't interview like Tulsi Gabbard, but they interviewed Deval Patrick. They interviewed John Delaney.
Hey, good job, Deval.
How you split that hair, don't ask me. But anyway, they did. What's interesting is they asked him a bunch of questions. Now, one of my favorite moments from the Andrew Yang one, let's see if I can find it right here. Just going through. And this is what they're long, like, just go through and show you guys. They're long interviews. I mean, they sit down and talk with them. They ask them a lot of questions. They get a lot of, answers. Now, one of my favorite ones they did Andrew Yang, and this is just, we're going to go through all the candidates answering particular questions, because I'll show you the particular question, and I want to find where they are. Dang, I'll pull it up in a second. Bottom line is, there's some really dumb traps, some ridiculous stuff. In here, at one moment, they're asking Andrew Yang a bunch of policy. Here we go. So they say. I want to move on to some other questions. I actually have one last for you, which is why run as a Democrat versus a Republican if you have such a bipartisan issue? And I'm not going to say this is what they're asking him. To me, that sounds
That's
like
an underhanded way of saying
you're not really
just
Democrat.
a Republican.
Yeah, you're not really Democrat, right? Basically, I'm saying that. So he gets in and he talks about the fact that, he ran as a Democrat because he's been a Democrat for a long time and he supports Democrats. So I guess it's a good enough reason, right? Well, this is where it gets ridiculous to me. So they get through talking inflation and they go, okay, we're going to move on to something perhaps a little bit slightly less serious. Andrew Yang responds, I like this. Less serious. So there's a question from Ms. Harris. Back in September, you actually spoke out on behalf of the comedian Shane Gillis, who had been hired on SNL and was quickly fired if some racial comments were stirred up that he'd made in the past.
No, they didn't say racial, because that would have been accurate. They said
racist.
After some racist.
Sorry, yeah, I got small.
Which is
the small
accusatory,
print.
and that's why they're a dumpster fire
And
newspaper.
you said you didn't want to be judged for. No, this is what I think's right. Look at the little editor's note after that first question. In hindsight, this was not an accurate assessment of the next question. You think?
Yeah.
You think? So why'd you defend a racist? Is it an accurate way to describe something less serious? I don't know. Maybe to this person, inflation is dead serious. Maybe they're just saying, to us, nothing's more important than, nothing is more serious than inflation. Even this is less serious.
They don't have a devil. Honestly, the New
It's
York
just, what
Times.
a crap way of handling an interview like this. Like, we're gonna give you another.
Yeah.
Let's get to something lighter. Okay, cool. So you defend racists? Is that what we hear? It's like, what is this? What are you doing? And they didn't just do this to Andrew Yang. Of course, they gave it to him more than they gave it to anyone else.
So when you don't have a devil to believe in, the ultimate heel becomes racism or race, and when you don't have a God to believe in, because you're godless, the ultimate face becomes climate. So they totally have revealed, you know what I'm saying, the godlessness of their editorial board by that question alone. Think about it. When you don't have a God to believe in, the face becomes climate.
Okay, dude, I don't know what it is.
And the heel, when you don't have a devil to believe in, the heel becomes race.
That is one thing. I'm just using
wrestling
You're
terms.
on a kick tonight of here's the one thing that proves it all. It's
no, I just can't stand the New York Times.
I do. Loud and clear.
If you couldn't tell.
Loud and, I don't like him either, but I can be fair to him because you know why? They make so many stupid mistakes. There's dumb stuff in this. And again, I want to highlight, this is the editorial board. It's one of the reasons why you see exchanges like this, because it's not a person. It's multiple people just being stuff. I don't want to.
But so anyway, they said, why are you a racist? First they said, why are you a Republican? And then they say, why are you defending racists?
But I just wanted to highlight one thing. This is what I want to get into for more part. Because this is what I think is the dumb part of it. At some point, they do get into perhaps less serious lines of questioning. They really do. They don't only talk about serious policy stuff. One of the reasons why it's so odd for them to say that. So here we go. I'm going to lead into the question that we're going to look at everyone's answer to, because I'm really curious how everyone answered this. So anyway, they go, if you become president, what government secret are you most excited to learn about? He said aliens. And then they go to this question. And they asked, I believe, everyone the same question. And who has broken your heart? And he said, wow, these questions are really fun. Who's broken my heart? And someone interrupted and said, don't be tactical now. Basically sorry, don't like the way they operate themselves. Regardless, Andrew Yang goes on to talk about Obama. He said, it's going to make me very sad to say, but I feel like I had an awkward relationship with President Obama where it was inspirational when he won. I was celebrating with my wife in the streets, and then over the years, I began to feel like we missed a great opportunity. So I say there was some heartbreak attached to that, and I worked with the president afterward, and I still admire him a great deal, but I think we could have done a lot more, and I don't think opportunities like that one come along very often. To be honest, even coming from Andrew Yang a little bit, I gotta say something. They put me on the spot here, because I want to go through everyone's answer. Now, the next answer was my favorite answer so far. And again, I'm no Bernie supporter, but this cracked me up the way he answered this question. So, sorry, I typed in heart and I forgot that he had a heart attack. So they asked 15 times about his heart attack. Anyway, because apparently the New York editorial board just learned he had a heart
All
attack.
they can
and
ask
all they
Bernie
can talk about-
Sanders about is his heart, and then all they can ask Andrew Yang about is why are you a Republican and why do you defend racists?
I mean, like I said, there's more stuff in here, but this is the question they ask everyone, so we're going to go through the next answer. I love this answer right here. So, again, I love Bernie's response here. I love Bernie's response to every question, but this one cracked me up. They say, hope you don't mind if I ask you a couple more personal questions. Can you give us an example of one person who's broken your heart? And they note that there was a long pause, and he said, on a personal level? Yeah. This is, by the way, my favorite response. I don't care who you are. I don't care what office you're running from. If you're ever asked a personal question, no, I won't. It's probably one of the best ways to respond to it. He said, no, I won't. Even candidates for president of the United States have a limited amount of privacy. But this is what I thought was interesting was the way that the staff read in. They say, it's a little interesting the way he didn't answer that question. One board member said afterwards, it was such a human response, and I think an older candidate will have the courage to do that, but it'll be interesting to see if other candidates, particularly younger ones, feel like they're forced to answer. I will say a little bit, Andrew Yang, it seemed less like he was like, I'm forced to answer, more like he's just willing to answer any question. So he's like, I guess Obama.
Maybe the Gen Xer that wrote this feels that way.
Yeah, but I just thought that's a hilarious way to respond to it. No, I won't tell you.
But Cody, I could see you saying something like that.
Yeah,
and you know for a fact, if I was sitting down there with the editorial board, I'd be like, your question's a piece of garbage and just shows me that you're an SJW loser.
Okay, but here's the thing also. You're not running for president right now. So I will give him that. It's tough when you're literally running for president.
Look, after the melee and the revolution, I won't be running for president. I think I will change it to emperor.
Dude, what podcast or movie were you watching before we started? You got some kind of energy today. It's really something else. But anyway, we're moving on now.
Dude, I'm sorry. I do admit that I lose subjectivity with the New York Times because they have been so deceptive my entire adult life. My entire adult life, they have controlled a narrative in an extremely dishonest and destructive way and have probably been the single largest contributor outside of broadcast televised media to the corporatist takeover of America that has impoverished millions, made middle class wages go stagnant, and like puts me this far away from the progressives when it comes to just hatred of corporate media.
Okay. Hey, you know what?
This is where me and all like the Bernie bros can hang out.
Ever seen the movie Green Street Hooligans? Ever seen the movie?
No, I haven't.
Remember when I was a kid? It's a movie about soccer hooligans and journalism.
Okay.
And the soccer hooligans, they hated the journalists because they lied about them. They said they write lies about us. They aren't true. We hate. And I thought it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, why would anyone hate journalists? Like reporters, like they just write about things.
Yeah.
And it's funny now as I've grown older as an adult, I question less why the characters in that film hated journalists for lying about them because I'm like, yeah, they don't lie about literally everyone. They don't lie about everything, but they will lie about people and they'll lie about things. Yeah. I got no problem. Anyway. A little bit of this is the next candidate. So again, we're going through every candidate's response specifically to the broken heart question because it stood out as so stupid to me, and I actually respected Bernie Sanders for just not answering it. But we're gonna move on. Tom Steyer. How did Tom Steyer respond to this question? So I actually have a personal question for you, Mr. Steyer. Who has broken your heart? I like how Tom Steyer did the classic stalling for time maneuver of asking the question back. Who has broken my heart? Question. Just repeat their words. What did you just say?
Yeah, or maybe you're just thinking about it, you know?
Someone asks you what time is it. If you don't know, what time is it? Let me think. Anyway, yeah, exactly. It's a stalling time. He goes on. He says, okay, so I would say I added the Okay, so I would say a month ago I was in Iowa talking to predominantly women working in mental health facility who were being treated terribly. They were being, and then they mentioned he tears up a little bit, which I got to say, by all accounts, Tom Steyer seems like an actual human being running for president. Just being a billionaire, he seems more human than the rest. Yeah. So from that experience, how would you help this one? Oh, looks like he literally couldn't answer the question all the way, so they had to interrupt him. I didn't even read Tom Steyer's answer. I like his answer. Good on Tom Steyer. He actually was an emotional human in this mark. So look, they're being mistreated across the board. They weren't getting overtime pay. They weren't getting raises. They're underpaid. They were getting physically abused and then fired for not coming back to work fast enough. It was illegal for them to tell the truth outside of their job function or they'd be fired. There's a treatment of working people in the United States that is wrong. Leave it to the billionaire to be the only person fighting for the working man. That's hilarious to me. But there we go. Tom Steyer pivoted Who Has Broken Your Heart into the plea for the working man, woman of this country. Again, but it's a political answer.
By the way, I want to see this. Like, this is how much I don't trust the New York Times. If I were to read that, not understanding that they're literally just propagandists, I would have thought, oh, this Tom Steyer's guy, look, he tears up about overworked women. You know, but now I don't even believe whether or not he maybe teared up. They might just be adding that to make him look great. That totally could have been just like a focus grouped, pre-rehearsed question.
They filmed the entire thing as part of a television series, so I believe it's on film.
Then fine. I want to see if he wiped his eyes with that like onion stuff that makes you cry. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't trust these people at all. They have completely forfeited my trust over 40 years of doing everything it took to do it.
You know what, man? I did not realize the can of worms I opened with you, and I just mentioned the New York Times. Now I gotta note that one away. This was really crazy here. So the Cory Booker one, in every one of these endorsement articles, they actually clipped out one answer in particular, and they put the video clip. Because they want to make sure you watch the show on Hulu, which, by the way, that's how serious New York Times makes this. It's a televised series it's a TV show. This is literally a TV show on Hulu.
That's kind of cool, though.
Oh, yeah. It shows me that this is a very emotional, deep decision for them to get their editorial staff together and film a TV show. Anyway, so they asked Cory Booker. This is Cory Booker's response. So we wanted to end on, we're running out of time. I'd like to end on a couple of questions asking all of our candidates. Who has broken your heart? And he has a very long response. I don't want to read all of it because it's actually probably better to watch it. It's better to watch.
Whoa, Cory Booker veers verbose.
But he goes, look, I have this firm belief that America hasn't broken your heart. You don't love her enough. And living in New York for the last 20 years, I've been broken, shattered. I've had moments I wanted to give up. And a lot of them have just involved the deaths of ones I remember most. The one that has still hurt me, they reflect on the deaths of young black men. So often it's been myself on my own screw-ups. And the one that I want to think about every election at a time of my election is Hassan Washington, who was my father, exact same kid, born in different generations. My dad in 1936, just like my dad Hassan, both born in single mother poverty.
He said this answer before. We've heard it.
It's a bit of a rehearsed thing, but like I said, Cory Booker, every time I hear him talk, I'm like, man, dude, you don't be president. You are a great mayor. Whatever the political position where you're interfacing with the public the most is probably the one he should be in because he's really good at that. I've never heard people who didn't
needs
like
to be mailman,
personal interactions with him
and just like become friends with everybody in his neighborhood.
I mean, is that not like literally what the mayor is? Isn't the mayor supposed to be like literally? I think that's why he's such a great mayor and got elected to higher office. But that just seems to be where he shines is when he actually gets to, because that's the kind of stuff that people love to hear. But honestly, it's not going to get you in the White House. It isn't. People want to hear more about, like, you can be more.
When you pivot it into a political speech, it doesn't seem real. That's why I liked Bernie Sanders' response. Yeah, you know what came to my mind first? First off, Cody, what's your answer? Honestly, who's broken your heart, dog? What's your real answer?
I'm not going to tell you.
So you pull a Bernie Sanders? Yeah. The first answer that came to my mind was I was thinking, oh, my wife, she actually broke up with me. She broke up with me when we started dating, dog. She actually broke up with me twice.
Hold on.
This is our third time around. So that would have been my answer as president. I was really like, dude, my wife, hands down.
I have to admit something.
What?
I had not read this part of the Warren one. Jesus. You think the New York Times...
Hey, look, Warren's Pocahontas, not Jesus.
You think the New York Times is softball on Warren here? Check this exchange out. This is Warren's answer to the question. It's ridiculous. Check this out. So, one more personal question. Who has broken your heart? She says, my first husband. And they say, do you mind telling? And she goes, well, yeah. She gets cut off. Oh, my God, we're running out of time. We have a bunch of questions around technology. Moving on. And they don't ever get more into it. It's like,
I'm actually kind of interested to what
you
had to say there.
They pivot to this. Andrew Yang said in one of the debates that you're applying a 20th century framework to antitrust when it comes to big tech. Why is he wrong? That's my favorite way for
why is he wrong?
Not what is your opinion on this thing? So Andrew Yang's opinion is this. What is yours? Why is he wrong? Isn't it just hilarious though? Elizabeth Warren's about to get personal, and I guess for whatever reason they wanted to direct her away from that. So they literally cut her off and say, oh, running out of time, moving on. Andrew Yang guy, he's wrong, right? Like, what? It's funny to me that they actually published it in the full long form like this, because when you read every candidate's long form interview, one after another,
but then they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves because read this. She says, my first husband, right? And then unfortunately, they botch it. But then she adds in blue later, at age 19, Senator Warren married her high school sweetheart, a computer engineer, Jim Warren. She gave up a full scholarship to George Washington University, and then they split partly because he didn't support her career ambitions. BS. I don't believe that. Like, she's already lied about sending her kids to public school. She lied about her ethnicity and received awards on it for years and years and years. She's lied about her everything. She just lies about everything to spin herself in a better light. At this point, I don't even believe that story's true from Elizabeth Warren. I think that's just the spin that she throws out there. And I don't know. It's like, I want to see proof. Show me the divorce papers where he put that. like non-compatibility due to career ambitions. I want to see that, Elizabeth, before I believe you.
Yeah, I agree, man. I don't watch Elizabeth Warren a lot either. I thought that was kind of a funny one to look at right there.
But I really think New York Times botched that by not letting her answer that question, because I'd want to see that. I'd be interested in seeing what she said, thinking, oh, maybe there's hope for you. You know, you have a soul.
You want to talk about a political answer? This is great. I love Amy Klobuchar. I have seen this one. This is my favorite one. Amy Klobuchar's. So you think Amy Klobuchar's thinking ahead? You think she's thinking about politics? You think Amy Klobuchar knows she's in friendly waters with an answer like this? I love this one. So bear with me. Who has broken your heart? And she goes, besides a few boyfriends, yada, yada. She gets on. Lindsey Graham's broken my heart lately in the politicals. Oh, pivot it to politics. Again, I prefer the Bernie Sanders. I'm not going to tell you that as personal than just not giving us a personal answer and saying politics. Politics just broke my heart. And we got, oh my God, there's so many of these. I apologize. We got Pete Buttigieg. We can get through him. I apologize. I didn't realize there's 40 of these, but they interviewed, like I said, they went all the way down to Devel Patrick. So we'll go through a few. I don't know. I guess okay, we'll do one last.
You don't want to see Buttigieg's?
No, I do. Let's go through Buttigieg real quick. I just want to take a break from a second and talk about something else. But here we go. They go back, running out of time, asking Pete Buttigieg, who's broken your heart? And he said, I mean, Boston College. I was 11 years old. We were this close to the national championship, and they came to South Bend. We were one game away. We had beaten Florida State to become number one. I actually like that answer. Sports, I will. That speaks to me. Somebody saying, you know what? When you said who broke my heart, I forgot. Didn't think about this. The Los Angeles Dodgers broke my heart in 2007. It broke my heart, but that's a great response. I gotta give him kudos on that one, man. It's a crap question, but that is a brilliant answer. I'm gonna remember that one from now on.
Okay.
Yeah, because dude, I still have not recovered from the 2017 World Series, and in light of recent stuff that's come out, I will perhaps never recover from the 2017 World Series. Oh yeah.
Are you gonna be like Uncle Rico? You know, just like, if they would have put me in, we could have taken state. Are you just gonna sit there saying like, if they wouldn't have done this, Dodgers could have won?
I mean, it's way different. They're different things. I'm not
because you weren't playing in it, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not going to get into the allegations.
Who was the guy that Tosh.0 got on that had started literally crying because his football team lost, and then he gave him a chance to have an internet redemption?
I don't know who, but that happens. That happened. Hundreds of thousands of people were crying when their team lost yesterday.
Oh.
So that's like, it's one of those things. I can see someone who comes outside of sports fandom and be like, oh, if somebody cried because their team lost. It's like,
no, it was a viral video. I'll send you a link.
No, I know what you're talking about, but it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, dude, like that was what people were doing all over Green Bay. It's people were doing all over Tennessee yesterday.
Okay.
I mean, not everyone. I didn't cry when the
That's
Dodgers
what everybody
lost,
was doing in the
but
octagon when the fight only lasted 40 seconds, right?
Yeah, that was a weird fight, man.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, wasn't it?
Anyway, you've seen how riveting these questions the New York Times asked people.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Conor
these
McGregor
people
fight.
dig deep, and
But
they
there's
dug
one
so
last
deep.
one last
I
one.
trust their endorsement because they really got into the nitty gritty.
One last one, and again, I can't say too much about this one. This is the personal answer. I would have respected Biden perhaps for saying, I'm not going to tell you more. But he talks about his son, and when his son died, and that was heartbroken. Which, hey, I'm not going to say anything about that. That's probably, yes, I can imagine that's probably the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to Joe Biden in his entire life based on the way he's kind of lived his life after and the way he talks about it. But the way he treats his other son, Hunter, it seems like that's the most traumatic thing that ever happened to him. So, hey, man, I'm not going to get too much crap on that. But anyway, that was the riveting question of who broke your heart. So we can get through and talk about this. There's one thing I want to talk about relating to Andrew Yang in this article. And here's the lovely pictures they picked of Miss Warren and Miss Klobuchar. So they go through here, and this is what I love. So they start talking about, after Elizabeth Warren, they start getting into the lack of a single powerful moderate voice in this Democratic race is the strongest evidence of a divided party. Please tell me more.
Wait,
Here's
who
the
said
candidates.
that?
The NYT editorial board. It's my favorite thing.
Okay.
Talking about Andrew Yang, saying entrepreneur and philanthropist, which, by the way, people always say, well, why, like, oh, what are they going to call him instead of a tech entrepreneur? I don't know. Since he's been a philanthropist for a lot of his adult business life, not a lot, but, the last thing he did before running for president. I actually like that, entrepreneur and philanthropist. He's an engaging and enthusiastic candidate whose diagnoses are often thought-provoking. He points to new solutions to 21st century challenges rather than retrofitting old ideas. To me, that almost sounds like an endorsement.
Yeah,
Yet,
seriously.
he has virtually no experience in government, we hope he decides to get involved in New York politics.
Oh.
And then they actually pay lip service to Michael Bloomberg, saying, well, maybe Bloomberg could be a moderate, but we don't like him either.
Isn't that what you called sunning?
Yeah, well,
that's sunning.
In a way.
He has to explain.
I can't explain it all the way. All I know is
he has to explain all these cool Gen Z terms.
It's not Gen Z terms.
To my elder millennial.
When I pulled up the Urban Dictionary to confirm it was a real thing, people said, not something my friends said. It's actually, they quoted Jay-Z. You didn't come up with it, but it's a New York term. To sun is to belittle one. That's all it means.
Okay.
It was just funny to me thinking, New York Times is talking about how Andrew Yang should be running for New York politics. And that got me thinking in my, the Empire state of mind, so to speak. But I don't know. I just don't love this. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys in the chat room feel the same, and a lot of people in the world, in the American political sphere, felt the exact same way. Why would they endorse Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren? So I want to get to one thing here, because one thing that stood out to me is odd. A lot of you guys noticed this too. When Andrew Yang was trying to qualify for the last two debates, actually missed out in the January debate, Amy Klobuchar kept qualifying. I was like, why does Amy Klobuchar keep qualifying? Well, it wasn't only that. It's not the only fact that she qualified. Something else. The way she was handled on the stage was interesting. This is a December 9th debate. This was the debate where Andrew Yang famously barely got to talk and then boycotted MSNBC after that debate, right?
Uh-huh.
Amy Klobuchar spoke the second most of anyone, according to CNN, in this debate.
The last one was...
second most? This was December. This was the one before last.
Yeah. Well, no, because it was it was the last one we companion stream.
However, watch this.
She ended up crushing. We noticed that.
Check this out. For those of you guys who watched last debate, I'm sure you're aware of this as well. Amy Klobuchar also had the third most talk time in the debate, which, by the way, the debate was almost entirely dominated by the Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders. Not entirely, but that was the story of the debate. Warren v. Sanders. Did he lie or not? Somehow Amy Klobuchar found a way to sneak in there and speak almost as much as Bernie Sanders did in this debate.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird things where it's like, it's one of those, you have to question. Like,
well, this was also a much more even-handed debate, though, because if you look at everybody, they were all within basically a minute and a half of each other.
Less people, but still, Amy Klobuchar, I would say she's polling down closer to Steyer. Why is she speaking closer to Sanders, right? Like, I get talk time isn't everything, but there keeps being things that happen. Like, her getting the New York Times endorsement was like the fourth instance of like, am I thinking crazy pills or something when it came to, I'm like, she qualified for the first debate. She got to own the stage for portions of the debate. Because it's not like she's just a superstar who's rising. It really does feel like the media is pushing her in our face. Because you'll notice, what was the big viral clip of Amy Klobuchar from either of those debates? None. No one cared. No one talks about her. I'm sure there was, I guarantee you there's people who read the New York Times who picked up the issue today and went, or whenever they published it yesterday and went, who's Amy Klobuchar? She's running for president? Like, Amy Klobuchar is not this high-profile individual, yet the media is treating her like a legit serious contender. But, like, well, I guess, hold on. The establishment legacy media is, most people are like, Amy Klobuchar, what? She's not going to win the White House. New York Times isn't saying that. On the debate stage, they treat her like she's one of the most formidable candidates up there, and she strikes me as one of the many people who ran this cycle who just aren't like president material. We were talking, Cory Booker is like awesome in any role he gets to actually legitimately interact with his constituents. He'd be great. He seems awesome at that every time he does it. Not like president material. And just more in the sense that he's good at things that aren't being president. Because people like, Amy Klobuchar seems to be doing just fine in Senate. Why does she have to be president? I don't understand. Like, there's always this question of, like, why do you have to be president? Andrew Yang wrote a book and said, holy cow, if I don't do this, if no one's going to do this, I guess I'm going to be the one who talks about it. That's why he thinks he should be president. Pretty compelling argument, right? Some of these people will say, Joe Biden, you could say he's a somewhat compelling argument. He was a former VP. He wants to correct the path back to the Obama path. By the way, people weren't loving either, but that's something.
Well, Shiny Piplup 101 and the Alpha Wolf 95 bring up some interesting points here. He says, a Shiny Piplup. Actually, I don't know if that's a he says or a she says, because I don't know what a Piplup is. But anyway, I don't see the appeal of Klobuchar. I could see the appeal of Klobuchar, but the Alpha Wolf brings up an interesting point that I can kind of mirror. I've yet to find a single Klobuchar supporter. We have gone to myriad Democrat events. Now, granted, they've been predominantly in Los Angeles and in the West. We've gone to several in Nevada and so on and so forth. But can you recall a Klobuchar supporter that you've met? I mean, she's getting some serious pub here in the mainstream media. She's getting some serious talk time in these debates. She's getting officially endorsed by the New York Times. Yet I have yet to meet a groundswell of supporters. But dude, you can't wade through the Bernie Bros at these events. Okay, you can't avoid the Buttigieg dancers.
Remember, there's also it's kind of one of those things where I almost wonder. I will admit, it was like when you start saying like Twitter isn't real life. It's like, well, are these events real life? Because at the same time, the Kamala crew was loud and proud. She dropped out like weeks later, right? Like Tom Steyer had a bunch of people there. That was way before anyone. He was like, after he announced, there's a lot of people that were there that definitely did not be reflected in any part of the electorate anywhere at all. Like what it didn't seem super reflective of the campaigns. You know what I mean? Okay. Biden, he was super loud. He had a lot of people there. He's a front runner, I guess. But like Kamala Harris, she had like one of the biggest sections of people, and she dropped out of the race like 3 weeks later. So it is weird. At a certain point, it's almost like, what metric's reliable, right? Because if you were purely going off crowd, you'd look over at Elizabeth Warren, at the Warren crowd, which was smaller, which did stand out. But look at the massive Kamala Harris people. They were going crazy. Cory Booker's people were going crazy even, right? He dropped out. And it's like, what is, like, I don't understand which metric is the one that actually translates, right? Or I don't know, but I'm sorry. I don't remember seeing Julian Castro supporters there, which could be telling, right? But I don't know. It's really interesting. It's a good point. Because, well, I've never met an Amy Klobuchar supporter. I've never heard anyone say anything nice about her. As far as, like, people on the street. Like, oh, what's Amy? Like, most people just... And it's almost like she's in that awful position. I don't hear people badmouth Amy Klobuchar to me. People don't, like, write things spiting her that often when she's done weird stuff. It's mostly like she just gets forgotten. She's the, oh, yeah, she's running.
Yeah.
Oh, that Amy Klobuchar's still in the race. You didn't drop out. I thought I heard someone dropped out. It wasn't her. Like, she's there, which is the funniest candidate for New York Times to endorse as a candidate. There's name recognition is I thought they dropped out a few weeks ago. Now, I understand. I always understand the irony with Andrew Yang still struggles a bit with name recognition. I get that. And it's one of the reasons why I follow his campaign so close. I think it's amazing what he's doing.
Yeah.
But it's just so bizarre to me the treatment Amy Klobuchar gets from the media. She gets handled by like the CNNs and MSNBCs and the New York Times one way, but it just doesn't seem to be reflected by anything. Like it's not reflected in the streets. It's not reflected in the forums. It's not reflected. Like, where is this Klobuchar support reflected? And I don't understand.
What are we gonna call them? Because you've got the Yang Gang, you got the Tulsi Troopers, the Klobster,
the clobbering
the
crew?
Klobstermen, like the old Lobsterman fishing show, right? The Klobstermen. That could be kind of cool. I'm down with that. And I'm such an idiot. Shiny Piplup. We were just talking today about how the shinies are the Pokemon that are super rare. What did you say was 1 out of every 4,709?
Depending on a couple things, but roughly around there, yeah.
Okay, wow. So I should have seen Shiny Piplup coming. So, man, I botched that one. Anyway.
Yeah, well, it's for someone who's actually played a lot of Pokemon games and playing Pokemon for 20 years, I missed a couple gens, and that's a couple hundred Pokemon I missed. So I have to admit, there's hundreds of them for someone who plays the game. So I'm like, dang, never heard of that one. So don't feel too bad.
So what's hilarious, though, is that, we're getting all these comments in the thread about the staff abuse and Klobuchar, allegedly throwing different things at at her staff. And I do have to say, is that not the funniest image? Like, where the librarian truly gets tired of the kids smoking in the library bathroom.
And
and then
actually
throws something at him.
You know who wrote about this?
Who?
Make sure I frame this correctly so you guys can see just who wrote about this.
Oh.
Way back in the distant past.
Interesting.
February 2019. The New York Times, actually. Again, the New York Times and their editorial board are separate entities. I don't like the New York Times either. It's just the editorial board isn't necessarily the New York Times reporting staff. Because they will still report the news like this one. Now, I didn't read it. I think I actually read this article like a year ago. I haven't read it since. So go through. I cannot imagine they hammer her. But yeah, this is something that's been known, right? Senator Amy Klobuchar was hungry, forkless, and losing patience. Jeez. I gotta admit, I do not like reading news articles.
An aide in South Carolina in 2008.
This is the Combs. This is the Salad Combs story. Where's the one?
All right, they had to go all the way down to 2008 to find a time where she lost her patience and toss something at somebody. That's funny.
They do describe this as typical, though. And this is something that, by the way, there's been recent allegations. God, I think it was a high-ranking Kamala Harris staffer. Again, could be sour grapes. I doubt it. Who said something along the lines of, I know and spoken to the former Klobuchar staffers, because the New York Times even characterized it as this. What happened next was typical. Ms. Klobuchar berated her aide instantly for the slip-up. What happened after that was not. She pulled a comb from her bag and began eating the salad with it, according to 4 people familiar with the episode. And then she handed the comb to her staff member with the directive, clean it. What an awful picture of a human being. You know what I mean? The fact that she used a comb as a fork, it's like, yeah, it's weird. But like just yelling at your staff member, like, I'll use my comb then, clean this. Like, if that is an accurate representation, I'd be very surprised to find the editorial board of the same paper a year later then recommend she be elected president, because it's not. This is a story that it goes back a year. Like I said, recently a staffer, I think it was of Harris, please let me know if I'm wrong, came out and said, I have other people who can back up these allegations. She's abusing her staff members. And it's just hilarious to me that they just kind of don't really, it's like, whatever. She's Amy Klobuchar. Like I said, the way that like the legacy media looks at Amy Klobuchar is like she's a star. Like, what's Amy Klobuchar? Of course we're going to endorse her. She's the moderate. She's the only moderate hope. It's like, what are these people doing? And it doesn't make any sense to me. And yeah, even their own reporters are reporting about how there has been a lot of talk. Because here's the thing about this kind of stuff,
She was standing up for the environment. She was so incensed by the plastic fossil fuel derivative fork that was handed to her and not the bamboo fork that she expressed herself physically.
Yeah, well, I just think the larger thing to me that's really weird about this, because they go on to mention later in the article, this is, despite employee turnover that perennially ranks near the highest in the Senate, Mrs. Klobuchar's defenders among her former staff, she noted at the forum that some people have been with her for many years, which, by the way, I hate to play armchair psychologist, but that is typical with abusive bosses. Most people don't put up with it and leave, and there's the few people who can't help but stay. That's literally always what happens in any situation where there's an awful boss who's abusive mentally, mostly, or just like through like work, too many, any of that stuff. Majority of people say, I'm not going to put up with this, and I leave. And you find the unfortunate people who will put up with it, and they just stay with you forever and swear by it. It's not going to look for her. Again, that is a total theory. It's not fact. It's not actually going on. But they mentioned a couple things here going on about the fact that this wasn't okay. She recalled Ms. Klobuchar telling her, it made me feel valued, Ms. Nudie says. Talking about the defense of Amy Klobuchar, trying to be fair here, but yeah, Amy Klobuchar being mean to her staff goes back a while. It's something people have known about for a while, but like I said, man, yeah, it's the New York Times. The New York Times editorial board. Amy, she's the great centrist moderate, or the great moderate hope is Amy Klobuchar. Whatever. The way the debate people ask her, they ask her a bunch of questions. Amy, we got to hear Amy Klobuchar's take on this in the debate. It's like, why? Not that she's like worth any less than the other candidates, but it's like, why her? Why is she? Yeah. She's like, in the debates, they will just pivot out of discussion between other candidates to bring Amy Klobuchar into conversations. They don't treat other candidates that way. It's weird. Why her? Like I said, it's like that's like I'm taking crazy pills. I have no idea what I'm seeing here. It's like they talk about her one way, and she seems to be in reality a different. I don't know. I'm short circuiting here the more I read into this stuff, because like
you know how you were kind of surprised at my reaction in the New York Times, and you're like, wow, I didn't know I opened up that can of worms. That was a pretty solid can of worms on the Globster.
Well, no, just the larger thing is that like I believe that a bunch of the last point I wanted to make. The other reason why I believe these stories are true for the most part, you'll notice they referenced high staff turnover.
Yeah.
Anyone who works in any industry, it's kind of weird in some level.
Yeah.
Do you not know or basically be aware of what's going on in your industry?
Yeah.
Like maybe Senate staffers and House staffers? Well, people will warn you, don't work for that Klobuchar, man. Like, you think these stories don't get around? You think there's a reason why she's the highest turnover? But people work for Amy Klobuchar's office, quit, and then just go lie about her all the time for no reason? Like, it sounds to me like this is really valid, and it's just, it's surprising to see this article. It's not something that a paper like the New York Times would probably be talking about as much today. I'm sure someone's writing about it somewhere, as they should, but it's just, I don't know. These seem like legitimate to me. There are people still talking about this. It's just not the conversation.
Cody, riddle me this, man. What is in it for the New York Times to endorse Amy Klobuchar? Okay? We know there's idealists that want the first female president, and they're going to go for the progressive Elizabeth Warren, and just be ideological, and you can't help the ideologues. But what is in it for the New York Times to endorse Amy Klobuchar? Because this was a big endorsement that the DNC was waiting around to see You know who it was? You know the DNC heads are talking with all the heads at the New York Times because it's one big fat, club, and you're not in it, as our main man who's a comedian. Come on, I'm totally blanking here right now. Comedian. They said, it's all a club and you're not in it. Come on, he died. Ponytail, older gentleman, super cynical.
Oh, Carlin, George Carlin.
George Carlin, that was it.
I called him Dave Carlin for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure that
so
is.
just like George Carlin said, it's a club and you're not in it. So we know the club talked. But what is the media, specifically the New York Times, getting out of pushing Amy Klobuchar? What are they getting out of it?
I don't know, but you know what? I forgot. I just want to highlight this tidbit. That was interesting.
Okay.
Speaking about the Klobuchar thing. We'll get into this. Here's how I'll answer your question about what the New York Times. It's confusion. I like this. Among other concerns, her office's paid parental leave policy has been described as unusual on Capitol Hill. Like I said, stories get around. Two people familiar with the policy said that those who took paid leave were effectively required once they returned to remain with the office for 3 times as many weeks as they had been gone. The policy outlined in an employee handbook called for those who left anyway to pay back money earned during the weeks they were on leave. After receipt, I love this too because you realize there's, like I said, this is again very typical of people that are like not good when they treat other human beings, right? You see stuff like this where she gives you some weird, bizarre, dumb ultimatum. A lot of people would just say, no, I'm leaving. You can't make me stay. I don't care if it's in your employee handbook. I'm leaving. And then when afterwards you would try to hit him up for money. It's ridiculous. After receiving questions about the policy from the Times, Mrs. Klobuchar's office said it would be revised. We offer 12 weeks of paid maternity and paternity leave for our staff and have one of the strongest paid leave policies in the Senate. We've never made any staff pay back any of their leave and we'll be changing that language in the handbook. Oh, so it was language in the... I wonder if the more truthful... And again, this is me just editorializing. This isn't it.
Did you just have a boilerplate and they got caught?
No. I wonder if the more truthful way to respond to that question wouldn't be that we've never made any tax state. Maybe the more honest answer would have been, we've never successfully made someone pay back their way. Because maybe they could have... Doesn't say they didn't try, so we've never done it. Never successfully had someone pay us back. Because if they just said, I'm not listening to you and leaving, I can't imagine why they'd pay them afterwards. Having that language in there is pretty bad luck. Again, this isn't me, digging up 50-year-old accusations. This is like literally stuff the New York Times was talking about 1 year ago in relation to Amy Klobuchar. The other day, their opinion staff endorses her for, it's like you said, why? I don't know. People on the Capitol Hill definitely, seems to me, know what's up. Because I would be so surprised if there was there's a bunch of offices in Capitol Hill where the staffers, they really didn't know who the good people to work for are. They really don't know who the bad people to work for are. They don't. None of these people hang out. None of them talk. None of them are on social media together. It's just like blinders. Don't get. Only worry about our house. Dude, I have to imagine that this is something people talk about for a reason. I don't know. It's the classic when there's smoke, there's fire. It's just when you get to a tighter knit community, especially employment community. Like for example, you talk about Hollywood. Look at the Me Too thing is a great example. A lot of these people obviously knew, and we know they knew, and they've been talking about how they knew. Because how could you not? How many people are producing Hollywood movies at a massive level as studio heads? There's a few, and people know about this stuff, and everyone knows it's funny to me. It's if you're leaving one job to another in the same industry, how many people pick up a phone and call friends they have? Hey, what do you know about this company? I'm looking at them.
Yeah.
People will legitimately do that and then be like, are you sure that people aren't just lying about Amy Klobuchar? It's I think the jig would be up if they were, man. I think people have called and said, hey, I got an offer at Amy Klobuchar's office. People said, don't take it. She treats her staff poorly.
Yeah.
And that's why she has the highest turnover rate because she has the most people. I don't want to badmouth Amy Klobuchar. It's just, I just thought it was funny.
Or maybe they're just afraid that they're going to get put on hairspray duty.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I mean. It's weird to me that this is something that while the Amy Klobuchar, we got to ask her questions on the debate stage. She's got to be on the debate stage. Remember we were talking about the only person that benefited from the weird backdating of polls in the last polling cycle was Amy Klobuchar. To the day, it was one day back to benefit her. It's why do they do all this stuff for a candidate like that? I don't know. Oh, and a quick question. Have I done any more WoW canvassing? A little bit. I revised it a little bit. I've been doing it more just on my own, but you can get banned for literally just making a level 1 and running around, which is what I did the first time, but you can't get banned for just naming your character Andrew Yang and walking around talking about Andrew Yang, which is what I did.
Yeah. Rock on.
But no, I'll do some more. I'll hopefully, I don't know. If any of you guys want to see it, I'll do some more streams on Twitch, just Yang banking in various games. I just think it's funny. There was a comment we had in one of our videos. Someone was talking about how they got matched up with somebody in PUBG Mobile. And they're like, hey, you ever heard of Andrew Yang? And the guy's like, yeah, definitely, I know who Andrew Yang is. So it's like I said, it's funny. I'll have a lot of Yang tags and Yang stuff when I'm playing games, various platforms, various things. There is a lot of people, but again, he's definitely popular with gamers is the other thing. Like that's like his market. That's like extremely online young people are like the wheelhouse for Andrew Yang as well. You know what I mean? Like if anyone's gonna know about him, like people playing Rocket League probably. You know what I mean? So
okay,
but it's fine. I enjoy it.
I'm still wearing my hat when I go into public trying to count the comments. And you want to know where I got my third comment? I've only had 3. My first was in Nordstrom Rack. There was like a really buff looking like, he he looked kind of like a guy I know that was the first Filipino-American Navy SEAL. Looked kind of like that. You know what I'm saying? And he said, yeah, hey, what's up, dude? No, sorry. My first one was this cool, like kind of Latino looking dad guy that had some kids going in and out. So he was my first comment. Then there was like the Filipino looking Navy SEAL dude. You know what I'm saying? And my third actually was in Utah, bro. Utah, middle of the state.
Yeah.
I was outside of a restaurant walking by a movie theater, and there were some kids walking by. And as one kid looks up, he's like, yeah, man, cool hat. I see you. You know, it's like, all right, rock on, dude, rock on.
Yeah, I think it's funny because, like I said, I remember we went to, I forgot where. I was like, we did one thing one day, and my hair was a mess, so I grabbed my math hat, the one the Young Australian made. Shout out, those are really cool hats. Put it on, and we went somewhere. I didn't even do anything, and I was coming home, and I stopped by like a 7-Eleven, like a corner store, right? I walk in, as I'm paying, the guy just looks at me and goes, I think that Yang guy can have a chance to went, and I talked with him. Yeah, he's like, one of my friends is big into it. I don't know, and I kind of talked to him for a bit. He's like, all right, I'll pay attention. That was literally the only person I encountered that entire day wearing that hat. So I just think it's funny, like
you want to field some questions.
The odds of it. We could do it for a last little bit here. I just think it's funny, like the odds. Like I said, one day I went wearing that same hat, always that hat. I went to a bar. I was having one beer, so it was like 15 minutes. One guy was sitting next to me. He looks over and goes, "Oh, nice math, dude."
All right.
He also though did attend the local prestigious arts college. So again, perhaps a little bit like Yang's wheelhouse right there.
All right. So this is pretty interesting that I got a really interesting question from Trumper for Yang. And this guy's dedicated. You know, he's seems like another miniature Fred Ramey, right? Fred the Felon. Anyway, he was saying, how will he basically says, you know, he's been a business owner. He's met payroll for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? And how would the raise of the $15 minimum federal minimum wage, you know what I'm saying, affect all of these new online businesses and the new economy, because we switched to a gig economy. And I think, I don't know, I think it's going to be wildly destructive. And that's actually why the freedom dividend argument is so much better. Does that make sense? I don't know how we can get data for that, but it was a really interesting question.
Well, I think Bernie Sanders I don't want to give Bernie Sanders credit for this either. Not to disrespect him, but just a lot of people are talking about this, not just him. He didn't pull us out of thin air. But I think that's the idea why you see a lot of people kind of an admittance of that in beefing up a federal jobs guarantee program. It's them admitting that. Yes, like there isn't necessarily these jobs to give, so the state will have to give them. But I think they kind of, like Bernie Sanders in particular, answered that question in his own platform by just saying, yeah, the state's going to have to guarantee people jobs. We're going to have the proverbial, build a road to nowhere because we don't, which I also think it's one of the things that bothers me the most about the federal jobs guarantee, $15 minimum wage movement for how to deal with the economy shifting, is it seems to be this we don't care how the economy is shifting. We don't care why. We're just going to brute force, give people jobs doing whatever to force them a $15 wage, as opposed to like the Andrew Yang's approach of, how do we, because like I said, to me what UBI does, and it's one of the largest criticisms I have of UBI actually, is that a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for? Economists, the kind of capitalist.
Well, I got another UBI question coming up here. So,
but a lot of the capitalist economists, they have this little bit of any X type of economist will have this issue. They have this kind of pie in the sky idyllic, not all of them, but I always read this idyllic view of the UBI where they're like, imagine every small business person, an entrepreneur across the country opening up their little business. And it's like, yeah, in the ideal world, you have all the people's purchasing power goes up and small businesses getting built, but not everybody is the ideal model of capitalism. Where they're like, I will take this income and I will open my business. But I do also think that the most unique part of the UBI is it's a solution to, as the guy brought up there, right? Like the middle class is getting hit. A lot of those jobs where it's like one person employed 7 or 8 at a small middle class thing and everyone was able to live off that's going away. So Bernie Sanders is saying, fine, to hell with it. Just work for the state.
Yeah.
Well, I like UBI because UBI is a plan to kind of kickstart that new middle class. We have to find a way to get these new business people, these new entrepreneurs making these new types of businesses that perhaps can go on to be these small businesses, a couple $1 million a year, depending on what they do in revenue, like enough to pay people living wages. Like that is going away. And I think UBI is a kind of more clever response to it than the Bernie Sanders, okay, fine, if it's going away, we'll speed it up and have the state just brute force through the consequences. And I don't like that as much. There seems to be this lack of, it seems to be, who cares?
Like the New York Times said, retrofitting old ideas.
It's kind of this idea of who cares how we could fix it? Let's just
I got
overpower
one for you.
it. And I don't like that.
Okay, so I got one for you. And I think this is a really important question to address because oftentimes we at Problem Solver Politics, who are early adopters, amongst some of the earliest adopters, I'd say, of new media, of Andrew Yang, we're already accustomed to these arguments, okay? But we're constantly having new subscribers every week, new subscribers every day that may not be as familiar with Yang as we are with all of our months of commentary behind us. So Joey Barnett asked a very simple and interesting question. He says, one question with Yang wanting to give $1,000 a month for America, where is that money coming from and how is he going to budget that and not have the money run out? So the reason why I ask you this is it is kind of, it's a little bit of a simpleton question. You know what I'm saying? So how's he going to pay for it? Well, how's it not going to run out? I get
basic
that.
Question, right?
Yeah, but I also think there is value, as Albert Einstein said, if you can't describe something to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. So what is really the soundbite answer? How would you soundbite answer of where's the money coming from and how will it not run out?
Well, I guess
I got my idea, but I just want to see what yours is first.
To impose a value-added tax that will primarily target transactions and consumption, which will never go away. People will be transacting and consuming forever. So that's the run out. Also, and this is where it gets into the one, I would just do my little dig at the government. Governments will never run out of money. They'll just devalue it until their citizens can't live.
The government is your New York Times.
They'll never run out, right? But I think that the thing is he wants to reduce military spending. A big portion of it's going to come from this value-added tax, which is used in a lot of European countries. It's funny. I was actually buying a CD key for a video game, and it was bought from Europe, and it actually said value-added tax included when it was adding up my cost.
Oh, interesting.
So something that is, and again, it's and that's a great way to sum up the kind of transactions it's on. I was buying a CD key to a video game. To be honest, no fan of taxes, but I have to admit, if you want to tax people, don't say your gas is going up. Say, sorry, your iPhones and your Apple Watches are going up. And I get more into the details of exactly how it would work, but essentially be a tax when businesses do transactions wherever they gain value, a very small percentage tax, and then it would increase for luxury goods, decrease to functionally or literally zero for like milk and bread. That's a big part of it. It's hard to sum it up quickly without saying reduce government spending, reduce war spending, government waste, and social programs that'll be replaced with UBI, and then implement value-added tax. I guess that's I blew the premise of the question by keeping it simple, but that's the gist of it. He wants to redirect money already being spent on the military and on various social programs that would be being replaced with the UBI system. Idea being there, much simpler to distribute $1,000 a month to each citizen. Don't worry, government will find a way to make that way more complicated and expensive than it should be. However, it's still cheaper than running multiple different organizations, multiple different things that basically are aiming for that same goal of providing people with that basic living floor. Like you can call it rent assistance, food stamps. It's like, but is that not all those things working in concert for one goal? So cleaning up the waste there is a big thing, and reducing military spending. You'd be surprised the tens of billions of dollars a year we could more or less shave off our military spending to cope with that. But the biggest thing, too, is the value-added tax being a transaction and consumption-based tax for how we not run out of money. A lot of the money is going to be basically recirculated. Idea being, again, the kind of capitalist dream here is that, it's just people make businesses and sell stuff to people in their community. But I think that's the gist of what he's aiming towards, and I don't think that's a ridiculous point to have on it. So that would be the sustainability of it. Is, as I said, as we're taxing these iPhones and these Teslas and these luxury watches, like luxury goods in general, but even you get down to just non-essential goods. Now, I will admit that does start to bring into some, how high is it, right? Like if an iPhone quadruples in price overnight, honestly, it will be like Europe, where we riot in the streets when they triple our gas prices. Like, you quadrupled our iPhone prices, but idea being a larger share would come from, but again, I'm not like all the rich people put them up and take all their money, but I have no problem with rich people paying more taxes on their yachts, on their fifth sports car, on their vacation homes. Like, that is where we should be hammering people on taxes. When they're saying, I want my fifth yacht. It's like, whatever, dude, you're super rich. You can buy your fifth yacht, which I guess that's like Zuckerberg. But yeah, I want to buy a mega yacht. Like, because the reason why I like it there too, I know I went way too long on this, I rambled, but the reason why I like it there too is because there is, to this, it's gone for thousands of years, this thing. But there's this essence we understand with things, where at a certain point, when you get to a certain level of wealth and things you're buying, if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. Yeah. So are people really going to say, what? My $1.7 million yacht's 1.9 because of taxes? Like, I'm not going to buy my mega yacht. Now, there is a fear they'll buy it from other countries, right? So you have to make it so you can't just go to Mexico and buy the same
It's funny you mentioned that, though, because
a third of the price. But that's
the $250,000 RV that a wealthy friend of mine just bought. He actually bought in Nevada to avoid the 10% sales tax, which is $20,000. He just took a vacation to a border town, picked it up there, and drove it home. You know, and when you make that's why taxes really do matter sometimes incrementally on those luxury goods, because who's buying the $250,000 RV? Well, wealthy people, where if you have to ask the price, you can't afford it. And he could afford it, but it's an annoyance, that $20,000, especially if it's an RV I'm going to drive hours at a time. Why don't I just, cut my teeth on it by avoiding the $25,000 tax that they want to lay on me by simply having it shipped to Reno, Nevada instead of Sacramento?
Like I said, it's one of the things about doing consumption-based tax like that is dangerous, and someone can simply
go dogged
elsewhere
here
to purchase.
You got dogged in the chat, dude. It said Remas, the Oracle is rambling as much as the Boomer King.
Yeah,
that's a hard blow, dog.
I mean, no offense to them. I think I beat him to the punch by admitting it first.
No, I'm just kidding. So my response to one Joey Barnett would be, where's he getting the money from? He's getting money from because the freedom dividend is the thing that attracted me to Andrew Yang, and I am in 110% support of universal basic income paid for through a consumption tax as the way we enter the 21st century economy. Okay, that's just what got me here. Okay, and if I were to try and explain it in a sound bite as much as I could, I would say the universal basic income will be paid for by a VAT. And this will not be a bigger burden on our society because it will simultaneously shrink the size of the welfare state. So some of the money is coming from a VAT, some of it's coming from savings, and then it will drive the consumer-based economy, okay, netting us a better, greater society, not just from economic prosperity, but also from less stress due to economic stress. That's how I probably try and put it in a very long run-on sentence, is that way. Now, there's all kinds of details we can get into. Why I like consumption-based VAT tax better than unconstitutional income tax. That could be a video for another day. What those societal benefits are, especially to just families, single mothers, women, men who are in good jobs but not quite making ends meet, just the boost that it will give our society as a Christian, as a father, as a volunteer. I just see that as phenomenal. And that is the thing that attracted me. So that's probably how I would say that in one word. Thank you. Not one word. Sorry, one sentence. Thank you for the question, Joey. Anyway, there was something else that I wanted to say, and I can't remember what it was. I'm totally bummed because it was about UBI, and I was totally stoked. And it was triggered by when you said you saw that the VAT tax was paid. And I remember thinking, yes, consumption tax. So anyway.
Well, also one thing I like about it, because it's one I don't want to jump. I think it's to maybe your point, but one thing I like about the idea of transactional-based taxes as well, various taxes, is because one of the things that's really, somebody summed it up on Twitter pretty well. I thought it was interesting. Someone's like, you do realize there's a large portion of poor people who have they literally have never had anyone actually explain to them investment banking and all these ways rich people actually make and stay wealthy. It's like a foreign world. It's almost like it's like arcane knowledge. And the internet's changed that, right? And you can go learn it easier. But still, it is interesting. You'll notice a lot of people aren't poor because they're stupid. It's just because they literally were not brought up in this and you can move your money around this way. You can do this. You can do that. You can open these accounts. You can open that accounts. So much money is moved around pointlessly throughout the day in financial markets to just generate more money. That is what bothers me more to the idea of people, just because someone asked how would that address accrued wealth. Now, if somebody made billions of dollars or 15 years, put it in a vault and said, I'm not touching it, there's not a whole lot the government can do. Money is taxed, I believe, on inheritances. There is inheritance tax, so they get the tax on it that way. But the bigger thing is these rich people moving around funds, moving around stocks, buying stuff, selling stuff, just moving money from various accounts. That taking little bits off the top along the lines there, just to me makes way more sense than trying to hit people up for massive bills. It's harder to avoid a small charge on everything than it is one big bill. You know what I mean? There's a bit of and this is just my personal opinion. To me, it feels a little bit more of a sell of the price of doing business to somebody. Hey, a couple points. Trust me, people in this finance stuff are familiar with the ideas of a couple percentage points here and there of money being redirected. So I don't know. Yeah. Call me crazy, call me dumb, but that's my opinion.
So we got, we haven't even pubbed or reminded people about super chats, and we're already an hour and a half in and about to quit. But we got a super chat here from True Financials.
Well, thank you, man.
Thank you very much. We got so engrossed in the Yang
You guys are doing
talk.
great work on this channel. Keep it up. Honestly, man, appreciate that very much.
So I remember what I was going to say. The question was, both from Marianne H., how do we keep politicians from getting their grubby hands on it? And then Joey Barnett's question, how do we make sure the money doesn't run out? Well, this is where I actually don't think a president needs to get involved, and Congress needs to get involved, and UBI needs to become a movement. I think it had the whisperings of the beginnings of a movement in the late 60s and the early 70s when the Republican House passed it, when Richard Nixon, the Republican president, endorsed it, when Milton Friedman, the libertarian / Republican think tank firebrand philosopher, economic king, whatever you want to call him, wrote about it as the negative income tax, and then was kind of largely forgotten for a while. But I really think that's got to come back. And as long as it's an executive ordered thing, or as long as it's attached to the charisma of one man, it will not endure. It needs to be a congressional thing. You keep Congress from getting their grubby hands on it by passing it. You know what I'm saying? It's almost as though it'd have to be an amendment, just like income tax. Actually, income tax wasn't an amendment, but it did have to get passed through an act of Congress. So it's a step that needs to be taken by the legislative branch, not the executive branch. And I think sometimes that's where the Yang Gang falters. They don't really understand that, look, just because Andrew Yang, let's say he got elected, just because he got elected doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's a freedom dividend. You know what I'm saying? No, now we've just got a president that endorses the movement. Okay. So anyway, we already talked about.
By the way, one last thing I want to talk about that.
Okay, sorry, hit it.
Because one thing that's always to be discussed too when we're talking about the UBI and stuff like this, it's also important to remember that it is indeed a massive, complicated overhaul that I'm sure there's 50 specific little points that can be argued up and down. And there's
so was Obamacare.
I'm saying until something is implemented, there's always going to be questions of what about this, what about that. It's one of the reasons why it's one of the things with bills and laws. A lot of people, and I'm not ragging on people, but I always see this what I'm looking for. There's framing that once something is signed into law, it's almost kind of it's almost like people just admitting the government's just ridiculous. Is that it will never be changed, it will never be amended, it will never be corrected. If it leads us down the wrong path, well, we are just screwed, man, because nobody's got the wheel of this ship. It's like these are all things that can get corrected and adjusted at all the times. Oh, you know what? This is too high of a number here. We can adjust it here. Now, I think it's, and I don't trust the government to do this either, but it's part of something like a UBI. It would probably be rolled out one way, and a couple of years later, look a little different for better or for worse, because generally how this stuff goes. It's not like they're just like, well, here it is, the UBI. It's either going to run us off a cliff or be perfect, or we're never going to touch it again. It's not normally how they pass these laws. They normally go through a lot of revisions. A lot of eyes and a lot of hands touch these things, which sometimes leads to the kind of too many cooks in the kitchen effect, where it makes things worse. But there isn't. I don't know. I catch myself being guilty of this, or I see a policy I don't like, and I'm just at the end of the world. And it's like, well, but if it's really that bad, by and large, they generally get removed or corrected or changed. It's not. Oh, it's like I always tell people whenever you talk about someone about like weird specific, like, well, what if someone did this and that? Is there a law against this? It's like ultimately, it's why for like big criminal cases, if you really want to take it to trial, there is a jury and a judge who could, and they have happened multiple times where people have said, this guy's probably guilty, this girl's probably guilty, but due to this specific case that we are judging, we will, enforce the rules differently. So got off tangent, but I don't know, it's just whenever, because I'll admit, like I'm talking about UBI, I'm going to say right now, the way it gets implemented day one and the way it looks the fourth year of Yang's presidency, I'd be dumbfounded if it was identical. It's probably going to be little blind spots, this needs to be corrected, this needs to be changed, this has to go up, this has to go down. Little things here and there to adjust for it. It's just that's kind of the nature of things like this. It's very rarely that the perfect law is passed down to us by the heavens and never has to be amended or changed at all. Aside from we've amended the Constitution. If we've amended the Constitution, I think there's various policies in the government we could change a little bit if they're not working for us.
Okay, so we got 5 more minutes here. 5 more minutes. We're already over time, but 5 more minutes. If any of you guys got, any questions you want to get out of your system, any super chats, anything you want to holler at us, got 5 more minutes here. I did have one last question for you, Cody. I was thinking it's this whole Klobuchar out of left field the past 3 weeks has just been a really, really interesting phenomenon for me. You know what I'm saying? So, Christian Solid brings up a good point. Alaska has never repealed.
Yeah, because it's working.
Yeah,
when it's working,
for 37 years.
You don't have to adjust things that are more or less working. Like I said, if people in Alaska were living in the tyranny of their, I don't know what they exactly call it, but their form of it's not even really UBI. It's just kind of like the way I understand it, it's almost like you just get a bigger tax return. But either way, if people were just living like, oh my God, Alaska's crumbling because they would have changed it in 37 years. That doesn't appear to be the case. By and large, it's working there, so they don't have to change it.
Young Park says, interestingly, and I'm going to go back to my question, but I'm loving some of these comments. He says, it's important that we don't look at China as some kind of enemy. We have to look at them as a cancer. And then Will H says, if we lose our middle class, China will beat us for sure. And actually, I totally agree with both of those comments. That I definitely probably would not have put them that way, but that's actually a really interesting take. And here's my question for you: I think UBI and Andrew Yang will strengthen the middle class. Actually, no, I can't say one person would. I think UBI would strengthen the economy most. That movement, not just a person, but the movement would strengthen the economy, especially the middle class, the most. And America gets its strength from its middle class. Whether we like to admit it or not, we get our strength from its middle class. So thank you very much, Chris Geeter. Support free content. Rock on. Thank you for the super chat, Chris. So here's my question for you, Cody. What Andrew Yang said, he said something's really interesting. He said, that's the last debate that I'm going to miss. And it's true. It's probably the last debate he'll ever miss. We did a video on that today. He also said, interestingly, that he suspected if he doesn't win, the person that wins will start sounding a lot like me. Do you remember that quote? It's not a perfect quote. I'm paraphrasing here. But he says, either I'm going to win or everybody's going to start sounding a lot like me. Okay? So is there any way that you think Andrew Yang or Elizabeth Warren, the two endorsed by that dumpster fire we call the New York Times today, is there any way where you felt like they have started sounding like Andrew Yang?
Well, 2 things. One,
okay.
Really quickly, a couple things. So $2 super chat from Christian Solid, Andrew Yang in a black church. That was, I'll play a video before we end here. That was a cool little viral video. Somebody pointed out that they didn't correct him when he put the the robe or whatever on incorrectly.
I got the next super chat too.
But so then one last thing I want to talk about to your point before you get to that. Somebody would disagree with you that it was Andrew Yang who said that, because John Delaney got ratioed big time on Twitter. He tweeted this out. Andrew Yang said in an interview with MSNBC that we have to stop acting like Donald Trump caused all the problems. He's actually the symptom of a greater disease that we need to cure together as a party and as a country. Now, John Delaney did steal this from Andrew Yang on a previous debate stage, so he just wanted to make sure everyone knew it's funny how things get repeated. Andrew Yang had been saying this in his speeches for months before he was ever on a debate stage. So I just, to your point, bringing that up, I thought it was hilarious that no, John Delaney was the one who everyone's stealing ideas from. Of course. Why would people not be stealing John Delaney's ideas, who's been campaigning for longer than Andrew Yang and gotten nowhere?
Yeah. So
but anyway, this is the man's ideas you want to steal.
So we got 1 more minute and we can end on this. Trongho says something interesting. He says, any advice for talking to people about Yang when they prioritize identity politics over everything else? Well, first off, start talking to Republicans. You know what I'm saying? If you're talking to an identitarian, it's most likely a Democrat. They're addicted to identity politics. Republicans are very economically minded generally. And so I've actually found it's easier to talk the economics of UBI and having a new system based upon a universal basic income, especially to fiscal Republicans, than it is to any other group out there. And we had this conversation with Scott Santens where he said there's some people that just want the revolution. You know what I'm saying? So change the pool of people you're talking to. If you're stuck in that pool, lead with how it would, the changes and the benefits it would bring. That's a classic argument for everything from door-to-door sales to people that are just trying to talk in phone call centers and things like that, is the features and benefits argument. And one of the features and benefits isn't just how it would help you financially to get this extra $1,000 a month, because some people actually skip right past that and think, oh no, is this going to explode the national debt? Talk about how it would shrink the welfare state. You know, talk about how it would lower the amount of addictions and the amount that we have to put into all these other programs, because it would lower the economic stress threshold that's on the average American. I think there's a lot of ways to get around that, and then also accept the fact that people that prioritize identity politics over everything else are just like usually just wretched people. And there's a lot of people you just can't get to. So just move on.
Well, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
I would say that the biggest thing with it's the thing about Andrew Yang that attracts me more to the most to him originally was that there's something he talks about and it's in everything he does. And I will admit, if this is a road you can't cross with someone, then yeah, like sometimes you have to just say, okay, look,
dude,
if you feel what you feel. But it's one thing. That's what it is. With Andrew Yang, there is, by and large, with almost all of his policies, a sort of universality towards the helping everyone, regardless of where they're just helping people. There's this. It's one of the things really interesting about what we're talking about with UBI. It would be not stripping social programs, but probably providing something better than what was already there. Because the idea is no longer this idea of how do we get this specific group. I mean, like I said, I told a story
You'd be
before.
trading a Kia for a Ferrari.
Yeah, but I told a story, working in a restaurant, I remember waiters like trying to like not work some days so they could, because they're like, if I work a little bit more than normal, a little bit too long, I lose benefits and ultimately my income decreases. And it's like, that's not helping anyone. When you just help everyone across the board, you'd be surprised how many weird problems you're not making for yourself. So again, I would say if people are hung up on particular things, with Andrew Yang, like I said, the universality of a lot of his policies is, I think he talks a lot about the idea of, when he says that the GDP is going up and the, average life expectancy is decreasing, it's not the average life expectancy for a particular group of people. It's just like Americans. Because you're talking about the country, just like people in the country, regardless if you're even citizens, just people in the country are dying sooner. And the GDP is going up, and it's, like I said, someone on Twitter jokes
and we've got examples of that right now with the current administration. I think I was looking at the stats. It was, I can't remember if it was 5.3 or 53 million. So I'm not going to, cite the stat here because I could be off by an order of magnitude of 10. But so many people with the economy that we're in right now are off of food stamps. You know what I'm saying? Because guess what? Just like Ronald Reagan says, the best welfare is a job. And people don't want to be on welfare. people don't want to be on welfare. Yeah, there are some big pricks out there that do work the system, but they're such a smaller minority than people make them out to be. Most people would prefer to just be able to pay their bills and not owe people money.
Well, there's also something, it's like you can tell people who've never had to use any social program ever defending them to the death because, there is a lot of these programs are designed in a way where they say, come to our offices and prove you're poor. Prove you deserve it. It's ridiculous. It's like
so dehumanizing.
It's why universality is so great. It's like it's not like they're like, come to our office, bring paperwork, have signed documents proving you're poor, or else we won't trust you or give you anything. It's like just give universal benefits to people. And then here's the other thing too. If we find that in doing this universality, certain particular groups are having certain particular problems or certain particular issues, again, we don't throw the law book away and say, well, this is it forever. Adjustments can be made along the line, but starting off universal and then correcting when needed just is makes so much more sense to me than trying to focus so specifically at first. And then you kind of, what's the classic, I'm blanking on the saying, but you get my point. Once you get lost in these, because you'd be surprised. I wasn't surprised. A lot of people would be. We're talking about the UBI and how we pay for it. The amount of money that Andrew Yang charitably refers to it as current spending, it's waste and bloat in the government bureaucracy having 50 programs. Like I said, when you have 15 programs.
There's 13 federal housing programs.
Yeah, but the thing is, not even that. It's the idea that why does it make more sense to say we have a specific thing for food benefits, which, by the way, by and large is distributed through a card that you use as pseudo cash in certain locations. Why that can't just be money? Don't know. Housing benefits. Why that can't just be money? I don't know. Why can't this be consolidated? We talked about this because there's federal jobs unions who make a lot of money on unions dues and have a lot. It's the one thing it's important. I don't want people to get away too much from this talking about Andrew Yang. Nothing's perfect, right? Same idea when you say that if people were to implement a Medicare for All plan that got rid of private insurance, either entirely or for the most part, millions of jobs would be lost, right? I don't know if it's quite millions, but if Andrew Yang was to greatly restructure how a lot of these systems work in the government, there'd be federal jobs lost. There would be. Now, I think taking away federal jobs with a plan that also bolsters the economy and creates new industries is the better way of going about it than just saying, well, they're going to be SOL. You know what I mean? Like, there is this idea of like, well, yes, we're literally restructuring our economy a little bit here. We're trying to rebuild a new middle class. So there's going to be a place for these to go. Also, the UBI is there as well. Now, I have to admit, there is going to be people with anything ever in life, whenever you do anything on this scale, there's going to be people who literally just lose their job because of this in the government, federal government. They'll move. Obviously, it's easier to just move people from one department to the new UBI department. But if the UBI department, and that's actually, if correcting that spending is going to be a big portion of money, I have to imagine part of that is offices that will be closed and buildings that will no longer be staffed with people who had jobs. So it's important to keep in mind, however, like I said, I think that there's more. It isn't just, well, sucks for you. There is actually a plan to kind of rebuild and reject this. Also, I have to imagine that is the kind of thing where I say start universal and get more focused. That would be a specific group of people you perhaps might have to come up with some additional things in the short term for. People who are saying, look, we're closing down this like SNAP branch. We don't do this anymore. Oh. But that's where the government can come in with more focused aid because it's a legitimate thing they can wrap their hands around. People who lost their jobs because of this. It isn't just it's crazy to be coming up with programs so focused and narrow with such tight constrictions that are meant to address poverty. Is that really how poverty works? Tight constrict. Oh, hey, you generated too much money. Your income's too high. It's like that is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. But like I say, when you start all the way down to the most focused thing and ignore any universal elements, you find yourself in situations like this where it's like I said, the one that stuck out to me was people turning down shifts at work to not make more money, but not enough to counteract the benefits they lose. Yeah. That's not evidence that it's a broken, dumb system that isn't working. I don't know what is.
So my heart soars. This will be my last comment. Jaimito Frog, which I think is how you pronounce this, just canceled New York Times. During this live stream, he cancels New York Times, which I assume that's what it means. Took a while to reach them. Can't just do it online. Oh, so we had to call him. I subscribed after Trump won as a message to support the media. Because remember when he finally put Jim Costa in his place and said, look, enough of your buffoonery, get out of here. And they started saying, oh, this is an attack on the media. It's an attack on the media. No, it's an attack on corruption. And you just happen to be a corrupt member of the media. And so now he says, now I see how bad they are too. One of the single biggest gifts that Andrew Yang has given the Yang Gang is a chance to see from within instead of from without and complaints from Republicans, but complaints from within. Finally, the unholy alliance between the DNC and the mainstream media, of which the New York Times is a culprit, is exposed.
I have a question for him. When you tried to cancel your New York Times subscription, did they patronizingly offer you to stay subscribed for 1/5 of the price for the next? I love that. I'm going to cancel. Why? I'm just not that happy with the product anymore. Well, what if we stop charging you the sucker price and you got to get locked in at half off for 6 months? Like, I feel like I was getting ripped off. That's how I feel. Like,
and then also,
they always pull that on you. And you know what? It's worked on me in the past where I've done like promote. I don't mind it when it works this way. I sign up for a promotional rate. I go to cancel when my promotional rate goes to end, and they say, hey, we'll extend the promotional rate. Then I'm like, okay. But when I'm paying full price and I go to cancel, they're like, well, how does well less than that sound? I'm like, sounds like I'm a sucker for not doing this in the first place. Like, what? I don't know. It's my personal thing. Is just reading that rubs me the wrong way. It's happened like 6 or 7 times. I'm like, dude, I'm going through this BS to cancel because I don't want the product anymore. Finding out that I was an idiot paying 4 times the rate for no reason doesn't make me feel better.
Do you ever notice that all of these organizations that are endorsing these corporatist, supposed centrist Democrats, all right, never engage in means testing for their subscriptions? The New York Times doesn't, when you call them and say, hey, I want to subscribe, they don't say, okay, well, hey, send me your tax returns. We'll only charge you 50 cents a month if you're poor. And if you're rich, we'll charge you $5 a month. You know, they never, ever do that. They'll endorse the crap out of means testing for all their buddies that are going to vote for their party of choice. But they'll never means test their service. You know what I'm saying?
Well, someone said something funny. He said, I wish it worked like that with Comcast and Charter. Now, that's what you're dealing with local monopolies, where they're able to say, okay, fine, no internet is for you then. You know, like the New York Times can't say, fine, no news for you. You can go, well, I'll just not pay at CNN or I'll pay at, you know, New York Post, or the Washington Post. But yeah, it's funny when you get to things where it's one of the reasons why monopolies are so ridiculous is because like that's a great way of framing it right there is when I call New York Times, I'm not going to say specifically New York Times, but when I call, for example, I was working, it was like a clothing subscription box. They sent me a couple articles of clothes a month. When I called them to cancel, there's competition in that market. They're like, dude, we'll give you the promo price for 6 months. Just please don't cancel. We want your business, right? Yeah. But you're dealing with like a Comcast or an AT&T, like internet service. They just say, okay, fine. You just want an internet. We don't care. We don't need your business. No competition. Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna use dial-up or something? Like, you can't. We don't even do that anymore. You have to pay us for our internet service, whatever we provide to your area. Some areas, I think they still do provide dial-up. In some areas, I think they're just more remote. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever we provide to you, you get. I think it's funny. You get that, and when you cancel, they say good riddance. And when you go to when there's actual competitions, please don't leave. We'll do anything. How about 30% off, 40% and 70% off? Please don't leave. I don't know. That's you know what? I'm clearly passionate about, you know, like I'm passionate talking about politics. I love talking about, but the thing that gets me going more than anything is freaking consumer rights and consumer advocacy. I see what these companies do to people, and it just drives me crazy, man. Like I said, when I go to cancel and they offer me a lower rate, I just feel like I've been paying the sucker price for this whole time. That's the mark price. That's the idiot price. It's like it feels to me. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Episode of King of the Hill where Hank Hill goes to buy his car and people find out around town that the dealership's been charging him sticker price forever. Because Hank Hill is just an honest guy. He would just walk in and say, "Oh, $30,000 car, I'll pay $30,000." And the dealer just kind of let him get away with it. And Hank Hill felt so betrayed and so cheated when he found out that not everyone pays sticker price and he was being had. That's what I feel when I call these people and they tell me, like, how many other people are getting 60% off a month because they called and threatened to cancel? It's ridiculous.
Oh. So anyway, Trong Ho gave us a super chat, so I'll highlight one last question. It was kind of funny. He says that he grew up in a super diverse community. He was always told Republicans are bad, so he didn't talk to him. And I said, hey, Republicans rock, bro. Anybody that tells you otherwise is a jealous hater who has no friends and doesn't want you to have friends, so they convince you not to talk to 50% of America. And I think that's actually true on both sides. I admit that. I admit my own hypocrisy sometimes. So anyway, this has been great. Guys, you're awesome. And by the way, I love the name Trong Ho. I was actually trained when I was in Orkin Pest Control by a guy I think actually named that. You know what I'm saying? And when I asked him his name, he says, yeah, it's like Trong, like strong. So whenever I see him, I'm like, that's awesome. It's like Trong, like strong. But I didn't pronounce it right, and he pronounced it right. So anyway, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. If you can, share this video with your friends. It's the best way to get some of the info out. Clip your favorite parts. Let us know what you guys are thinking. If you want to subscribe to the channel, make sure that you subscribe. And if you'd like to join, we actually have memberships now. It's a really, really cool way to support the channel. It's just a few bucks once a month. Comes our way. great way to support the channel, and you get members only live streams, which is actually some pretty cool, fun stuff. So anyway, let us know what you're thinking. Like, share, subscribe. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.